We're in a moment of technological acceleration unlike anything the world has seen before. 5 years from now, life will look radically different, and the shift is already underway. I'm Rachel Wilkins, and this is The Good News Is, a show about what's next and how to meet it with curiosity. Each week, I'll talk with the thinkers and builders that are shaping the future, from the evolution of money to digital land, on-chain fashion, and even space travel. Well, what a pleasure I have to sit down with my friend Landy, who is Creative Innovation Director, aka CID, for Channel 4, which is one of the biggest television networks. Are we calling it a network? Television channels in the UK?
Yeah, I think Channel 4 would describe itself as a public service broadcaster. So it's a TV broadcaster.
See, I've been in the States too long. I've lost my understanding and grasp on British cultural institutions. But it's so exciting because your position actually is a relatively new, in terms of like newly created position by Channel 4, which I think is a signal to how serious these companies are taking emerging technology, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say that TV broadcasting obviously is going through a seismic change, not only just off linear television but onto streaming platforms, but also just technology is starting to leak into, I think, all of the creative industries at a rapid pace. Yeah. So I think like every other sort of most institutions actually, but definitely TV broadcasting. Yeah, Channel 4 has recognised. So I work in the creative agency at the centre of the business, and yeah, my task is to kind of figure out how we pull ourselves into the future and how creativity and technology kind of wrap together a little bit more. I think that in this day and age is that I think technology has always been the enemy, or seen as the enemy of creatives, and artists. Yeah. They've always sort of thrown their arms up in the air when something new comes along, and I think that we're now entering into a new world where being a creative, and if you're willing to actually use the tools and the new tech that's now around, then yeah, I mean, you can only win. So
I love that you're kind of coming right out with the positive, because one of the things about this new podcast that we're kind of working on is like, let's address the elephant in the room of all of the things that are bad that are happening, that we are scared or feeling fear, uncertainty, or doubt around new technology. But there's good news, right? The good news is there's more opportunity. So let's just kind of like dispel some of those fears that people are having. Like, what are we seeing? You mentioned the seismic shift, but what is the real impact on kind of the broadcasting industry, the people who have jobs in those industry? Are we already starting to see negative impact from new technology?
Well, I think actually what we're seeing is a lot of anxiety and fear, but we haven't actually seen any negative impact yet.
Right.
So I think a lot of it is kind of is what people think might happen. So you've got a lot of people coming out with tools saying, oh, you can just cut a promo just like that, or you can just or you can just make design just like that, and so. My job has been to actually delve down into what the truth is, do a whole load of tests, figure out what we want to take on and what we don't. Obviously, at Channel 4, we're absolutely award-winning in our creativity, and we sail in the sort of remit of Channel 4 as a public service broadcaster. It's there to create change through entertainment, and I think that as long as you are saying something, as long as you're making something that's going to matter, then I think you're really going to win in the future, right? So I think like with AI especially coming in, and with the ubiquitousness of tools where anyone can be a creative, anyone can be an artist, anyone can create video.
Right.
What's actually going to matter now is what matters.
It's such a salient point, because it is like you and I both kind of exist in I hate to call it crypto Twitter, but that is where we spend some time.
That's where we met.
Yeah. And we'll get to that part of it in a second. But like, a lot of what you see on the timeline, you're kind of getting eyeball fatigue with the AI images. I mean, it's the same. You can instantly recognize that it's AI, and that is just kind of like people are calling it AI slop, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it kind of is, right? It's like it's low effort, it's low input. It's not really so much a skill as it is just a very simple prompt, right?
Yes.
But what you are seeing is those who either didn't have access to the tools but are really looking at AI as a craft.
Yes.
And really being thoughtful about how to prompt and how to train models, and perhaps using their own work that they've done previously in kind of IRL to train model. We're seeing really phenomenal things. Like a few people like to call out, like Claire Silva, Rafik Anadol, Sasha Stiles, like really pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Yeah, like, have you seen Nice Aunties?
Yes, I love Nice Aunties.
So that, like, I remember spotting her and reaching out to her, like, when she first started out, and I was just like, wow. So
those things wouldn't exist. Like 2 years ago, that kind of creativity didn't exist.
Absolutely.
Like that form of expression.
Yeah, and what's interesting is film directors. What I find really interesting is like the ads that like Vodafone and Coca-Cola have put out, just this last year. A lot of what people are doing is trying to recreate cinematic scenes. So they're trying to like recreate kind of Steven Spielberg or Christopher Nolan-y type scenes.
Right.
Yeah, often with faces that have got kind of creepy grins on them, and
seven fingers
so
on one.
Weird. But also, like, why would you do that? Because actually, what you want to do is create stuff that you couldn't possibly create in camera, right? So I just feel like it's just a whole new world for everyone to play in, and I feel like people have just not. I just feel like it's still so early, and I agree with the slop. I mean, like, looking at a lot of stuff that's created with AI, it just makes me not worried in any way whatsoever, because I think you can. I mean, I visually can, being a creative director, for most of my career, I visually can spot it immediately, like I won't be fooled by it. And funnily enough, my sister-in-law is an English teacher, and she said she can spot 2 sentences from ChatGPT.
Wow.
Even if they're just plopped into some writing. She said there is a real, just the way a lot of us can see that sort of a tinge on something visual. She said if you really know writing really well and sentence structure, she said you can spot that same sheen,
right?
Off it. Or
but that's going to evolve and get better and better. That's kind of coming, right? Like, which is scary, because you're going to need more discernment, like to be able to tell what's what.
Yeah.
Like how
well, that's why actually saying something that matters, or having some sort of a message is just actually what is going to become what's important. So for me, having always worked for places like Channel 4 that kind of, have a huge, like I said, like a huge remit to sort of do something different, to challenge the status quo, to sort of, support the underdog, to, blow taboo subjects out of the water. It's like, if you're not doing things like that with your content, whether that content be a painting or whether it be a poem or whether it be a TV show, I just feel like that's, so in a way, for me, I don't feel worried at all. And this is what I say to everyone at work, is that, like, we don't need to worry at all. Like, we're going to win, before anyone else will, because, like, we're always trying to say something, right? So, just
such a solid point. And I read something that Claire, I'm going to mess it up. I'm not going to say it exactly as she said it, but something that Claire Silva wrote in response to the outrage about the Christie's AI exhibit. And she said, to think that art is the process is missing the point.
Yes.
Like, the process of how you did something isn't art.
Yes.
It's what you're trying to say, which is exactly that. So the tools that you use to get there don't really matter.
No, and I think when you first could buy a box of paints in a shop, right? Years ago, artists just, a lot of artists were just like, oh God, now everyone's going to be
Yeah.
able to think they're an artist. And,
We're always in a permanent state of outrage.
yeah. Right? And actually, yes, some people have just thought they're artists, but, it's a pile of shit.
Right.
And, and you only have to go around like charity shops or something to see, a whole load of really sort of bad
dreams
attempts
that
at,
went to die.
Yeah. And it's only the real talent that actually,
the
that
cream rises to the top.
anyone's interested in. Yeah. So I don't think that I heard an expression the other day. Actually, it was someone was actually pitching about AI and about AI sort of how you integrate it into your creative processes, and that's something that we're looking at Channel 4. And they use the expression an AI sandwich, and I thought it was actually really interesting because people think if you're going to start to pull it into your daily sort of processes that somehow it's going to take over. And actually no, it's like you use a little bit there, then there's a whole part where it's like, no, we're in charge of this bit, we're in charge of the idea, the message, the crafting of it, and then maybe you might use AI again to help distribute it. So, it's...
That's such a good analogy, the AI sandwich. I love that.
Yeah,
So before we pivot, what is some, like, I know you can't share, like, client names or anything like that, but what are some of the conversations that stand out to you that you've been having in your role as Creative Innovation Director that have kind of really, where you think you're seeing people really move the needle?
I think I actually don't think anyone like within the TV broadcasting world has figured anything out yet. So like, I mean, I've seen some interesting stuff to do with because generally what we're interested in the creative agency at the beginning, at the center of Channel 4 is marketing. It's marketing, really. It's kind of like, how do we market all the content? How do we speak about Channel 4, the brand? How do we speak about what we stand for and stuff? So, there has been, but there has been some stuff that I've seen, adverts that I've seen made recently, just through sort of people that we're connected to within the ad world. And I think some of them have just been fascinating, where they've used AI in such a creative way that you just think, oh my goodness, this is a genius look. Like there was, did you see the O2 Granny?
No.
It's so funny, right? So you know that there are so many scammers that ring up old people, and my parents were on the receiving end of it, and it's just so awful.
So scary.
They ring them up, they say, oh, we're Amazon, we need to give you some money back.
Give us your bank details.
Yeah, my dad had someone get into his computer. I mean, when he actually told us what was going on, we couldn't believe he'd done it. But of course, he just thought, well, they knew how to. They said, oh, you have to open up your computer, give us access. We're going to help you. Go to your bank account. I mean, it's awful. So, they created this granny, right? That. She costs no money to exist because, she's AI or whatever. And all she does is she just keeps scammers on the phone forever. And so she just goes, hang on a minute, I just need to get a cup of tea. And
That's fantastic.
There is recordings of people kind of going, I've been on this phone for an hour for you, and starting to really lose their rap. and
we support that form of
and the whole idea is that, like, as long as this granny is keeping them engaged, they're not scamming someone else. And so
doing
there's
God's
some
work.
There's some genius little ways I think that that like the advertising world has been using AI.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. So for the last many years, you have been in collaboration with who is now known as the street artist Goldlocks, in creative development of a project that is now, after several years of development, finally being launched, and it's being launched across chain.
Yeah.
You're thinking very creatively. Tell us about the project and tell us about your creative duo that you have.
Yeah, so I think, I just to say first off, I was one of the Clubhouse,
OG?
Clubhouse OG, 21, fell into the void, sat in rooms night and day.
We lost ours.
We just lost our minds, didn't we? And we lost ours.
And money.
And money. Yeah. I mean, I have a wallet just
crap.
full
Slop.
of shit. but with some great things too. But no regrets at
No
all
regrets.
because like just learning about it all, and it was fascinating. And so I had a creative partner that I had worked with in the 90s. We were a creative duo, worked for loads of brands, just killed it, brilliant, had so much fun together, and just, we were just a great partnership. And we worked in Dublin, London, we lived in Hong Kong for 3 years, we worked with loads of people and did some great stuff. And then went off and did different things for, a good while. In the meantime, she went to live in America, in New York, and became the anonymously became the New York City street artist Goldlocks.
So fun.
I know, which is so cool. Which is this little wheat paste character that she like lovingly hand paints, and then goes up at night in the streets of New York.
And they're all over New York.
Yeah. And
New Yorkers know them.
And New Yorkers know her. She's like this cutesy little Goldilocks girl, but she's a bit edgy, like she doesn't give a fuck, and she'll also comment, culturally, she can be culturally potent too, put it that way, but she always holds the words just right. And that is about the Goldilocks zone, about the fact that we live the perfect distance from the sun, not too hot, not too cold. And so her message is just like, we're all cosmic lottery winners already, like don't sweat the small stuff, come on, And so when people find her on the street and they see the little @Goldilocks tag, they then look her up, they find her on Instagram, and then they read like, we're all cosmic lottery winners, don't worry about it. And just that message, I think people just absolutely adore it, And
I'm wearing a Just Right pin right now.
Oh, yes. I know. I was just thinking I should have
wonderful.
one on myself, really, shouldn't I? Honestly, I'm not very good at...
I'm representing for us.
Okay, thanks. You're repping for Goldilocks.
So why the decision to bring it onto the blockchain?
Yeah, well, I actually got in touch with her because I became, completely obsessed with just the idea of generative art and collectibles, and also like I love the whole generative art idea that you have like kind of one character that kind of is a constant, and then you have all these different traits, and it's just like, wow, Goldilocks was actually waiting for generative art to come along. Like she was just waiting for the blockchain. So we have this like, she's moving from the block to the blockchain, I think, which is just such a cool little phrase.
And I think she's one of, if not the first street artist to actually come in with a generative. Like I think we've seen like Shepard Fairey, and we've seen Tristan Eaton do versions, but I don't think I've seen any street artists do, or maybe Ron English did something early on.
I think there's been some street art activity, but this kind of, her art, I mean, you've been privy, haven't you?
Gorgeous.
And how talented is she?
It's magnificent.
So she has pivoted into digital art, right? The reason why we've been working on it for 3 years, or since 21, is because one, I went to her and I just said, come on, let's do something, And, and we're two women that want to pivot in our lives, right? And end up, not working for the man, being able to support ourselves as artists. And we're just like, let's do this. The Just Right logo is, as on your
gorgeous.
little pin, is just super cool. And it's I think it's just a great little brand and a great vibe that, and we really believe in the idea that blockchain can take her message from the streets of New York, right? So right now in New York, like she's really well known. She's been in like books, she's been in documentaries, she's part of the tours of, the street art tours and stuff. But, really that's its own little ecosystem. And so the idea that, she can spread this message and her art now globally, which is what,
cool.
Obviously what we're also excited about with blockchain. And so we've been, the last 3 years we've been working on it and laying plans down in terms of how we build a brand and a little company, and so it's so much more than just the idea of doing a PFP, so to speak, or something like that. So
I think it's interesting because you have waited and you've not just kind of like jumped. Like so much has changed, right? And I think you've kind of lost that. Just we're not seeing PFPs just drop and kind of disappear, right? Like or even companies coming in and like doing a PFP and promising this big extensive roadmap and then not delivering it.
Fuck utility and roadmaps.
Yes.
There's none of that.
No, thank you. So, but you also now are at this point where you're like, okay, well, there's choice. Why do we need to pick one? Like, let's think about this as more of a, like an ability to kind of storytell throughout these ecosystems with the Goldilocks character. Like talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think on the way, if you go to the website, it just says a technology adventure, and that's what we're looking at it as.
Yeah.
There is also a lot of in real life planning as well, in terms of like how you might access the brand in terms of real assets, real fashion. I think it was super inspiring just hearing Luca talk.
Oh,
right, we just heard Luca talk on the stage with Farouk, our fireside chat, but I think he literally blew the roof off the place with his chat.
It's insane.
And actually, for one, yes, we want to be multi-chain, but also to do collections that are related to the personality and the culture of each of those chains. And I've been around listening. I've not been like the noisiest of people, but there's a whole
quiet observer.
The quiet observer, exactly. And I've have a lot of friends, a lot of OG friends from back in the day. So people. There's a lot of people who know that I was way back there in February 21 or whatever when we first all started, but. I think what has been fantastic has been able to sit back and, like you said, so much has changed, so much has happened, but I do have a bit of a sense of the communities and the cultures around these different chains, and I just think it's actually that is in itself a really, really exciting idea of like how we're how we can sort of how we can play basically in the area. And we don't, like I said, there's no utility, there's no roadmaps, but we're definitely hoping to. I mean, I love what Lucas said about built for the consumer. I really and that Web 2 people don't understand Web 3, right? So the Goldilocks project is actually, at the front of it, you'll just see two women, the artist and the kind of creative director together as a pair, working it all out. And obviously the artist, she's anonymous, and she's not a public speaky kind of person, so it'll be me speaking for the project. But actually, in my role, and having been in the creative industries for years, plus all of the people that we're connected to, right, we have so much love around us, so much advice and consensus. Oh my goodness!
Can I name drop a couple?
Like I mean,
NPR, Vice, like people from major brands.
Yeah, and high up in those places, Live Nation. I mean, like we really have got some
solid advisors.
Solid advisors, and we're in such good company, and we've got such good support. So. But being around those huge players and having the conversations about how we might move forward, it's like I find it really, like I really am interested in this idea of like what I first loved about blockchain, which was the accessibility for everyone. And I just don't think there should be these walls that are so high to climb to play. So for me, I really want the Goldilocks project to kind of be an on-boarder and be a safe place and be a lighthouse for people who just are like, because I have so many people who if they had a wallet and there was stuff in their wallet, people would be very interested to know what they had in their wallet, and they would really shift the dial on things. But they're just they're not sure about playing in it all yet, because just the press that the whole situation has, right? So I think we were having a laugh earlier about this whole sort of culture of like, don't click links, don't click
on it. It's like, okay, well,
exactly. And as a creative director, we just, all we do is we try and make people click on things, right? How are we going to get them there? How are we going to get them to click that, then click this, then click that, and then get to the final end piece of content, or engage with the piece of marketing and unlock the bit of fun or the joy that has come out of that. And I think until we're in a world where that can happen quite easily and people can onboard quite easily, like we were saying earlier with the login, not having to get a wallet and go buy crypto, and so it's interesting. I love the idea of building a brand, building a company that has its foundations in blockchain, but the actual accessibility and the way that you connect with it is just not something that's going to be problematic. So been kind of waiting a little bit as well, like, you know, and we've just, you know, it's funny because we're moving at such a different pace to everybody else, because everyone else is like, just move fast, just, you know, just fail fast, just fail fast, you know. But actually I've seen so much. I mean, the thing is that you know, other people, you know, it's like it's at the expense of other people, all of that moving fast, right? And I don't like that, and I don't like that, and you know, so I'm not interested in building something that's just going to just, you know, make us a quick buck, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I also just don't think Web3 is just about greed, right? You know, just the way I just don't think AI is just about efficiency, right? You know, it's so much more nuanced than that. And I think there's so many of us, like you with the Good News Show, you know, who, and all the fantastic community and crowd that come to the Good News Show are all people who first heard about blockchain and just thought, oh wow, and thought of all of the good it could do, like didn't just, you know. So when I first read about blockchain, it was in The Economist or something, and it was years before this whole NFT, you know, boom thing that we had. And I remember texting a friend, and I actually texted the sentence, because I went and found it, because WhatsApp had just sort of started, so I knew it was somewhere on there. But I texted, and I think it was like back in 2017 or something, and I'd literally texted, oh my God, blockchain's gonna save us all. Yeah, wow. Because for me, at that point, it was about the consumer journey and the fact that you could have that transparency, and that would hold companies to account. And, you know, so I just, you know, I've loved the idea of blockchain and what it can do. And I've just always felt like I'm just a massive believer in it all, right? So I think, you know, to actually look at it with that mindset and build slowly instead of, you know, failing fast. You know, I just, you know,
intentionality.
Intentionality.
We really could use some of that around here.
Yeah. So we want to, just have a whole different vibe and energy to us. So, you know, hoping that, you know, that's well received. You know, but we are women in the midst of the most massive sausage fest you ever saw in the history of time.
Hashtag sausage fest. Sausage. Anything that we've not touched on that you want to share with listeners, perhaps, about Goldlocks?
I would just say follow Goldlocks.
Yeah.
You know, we've not been like we've been quietly working in the background, and we're going to get going now. So, you know, in terms of, you know, on the socials and stuff like that. So I would just say follow Goldlocks, GOLDLOXE. And yeah, there's a Telegram group, X, Instagram. I mean, she grew on Instagram, and just sort of watch this space and get involved.
Amazing. Well, this has been awesome, Landy. Thank you so much.
Oh, so lovely to talk to you, Rachel.
Thanks for tuning in to The Good News Is. If you're excited about what's next, make sure to follow the show and visit goodnewsstudio.io for more stories, guests, and ways to stay connected. Until next time, stay curious.